Welcome to Behind the Curtain, Nashville's movers, shakers,
and tastemakers.
Brought to you by Cord Real Estate, your key to the heart of Nashville. I'm Steve Luther alongside my co-host Van Hoy.
Here we peel back the layers of Nashville's vibrant scene, sitting down with the innovators, creators, and leaders who shape our city. From music to business and everything in between, we dive into the journeys that have brought them to where they are today.
We're here to uncover the stories behind the success, the passion driving their pursuits, and why they've chosen Nashville as their stage. It's about the people who dream big, push boundaries, and make this city truly unique.
So join us as we explore the heart and soul of Nashville through the eyes of those who know it best.
Well, welcome to the show. We are thrilled to host Eugene Lee, CEO and Managing Director of Strand Sports Entertainment. A seasoned NFLPA certified contract advisor, Eugene brings over 26 years of experience in representing NFL and NCAA players, executives, and coaches. Beyond his notable career as a sports agent, Eugene also imparts his wisdom as an adjunct professor at the University of Notre Dame and Boston College. Known for his steadfast integrity and ethical approach, traits that earned him a spotlight in ESPN's documentary The Dotted Line, Eugene continues to influence the sports industry profoundly. His contributions extend into media as well, where he serves as an executive producer for various unscripted content projects, showcasing his diverse talents and commitments to the sports field. Eugene, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here.
Well, tell us how you got started out in sports management.
You know, when I speak at some of these schools and have the opportunity to speak to these students who want to get involved in this business, I always tell them to be advantaged, be on the lookout for opportunities, because oftentimes it'll creep right up on you, and when you're not even looking. And so for me, I went to Notre Dame, which is where I teach one of my classes now. I went there for undergrad and for law school. Met my first clients on the basketball courts, just playing pickup basketball while I was in law school. Became friends with some of the players on the football team. And as our friendships developed, they asked me to become certified through the NFLPA. And so I had already accepted a job offer to move to NYC to begin practicing law, contractual law, intellectual property law with a big firm. But I became certified through the NFLPA. And then the next 4 years in New York City, it was definitely a grind. I always call it my professional perfect storm, because I never practiced accounting, thankfully. No offense to any accountants out there. I was an accounting major undergrad at Notre Dame, went straight through for law school. So I never practiced accounting, but working with Notre Dame / NFL players on the side, my first 4 years in the city, I was able to combine that background with the negotiation skill set, the experience I was cultivating in working with corporate clients on contracts, understanding and really learning the art of contractual language, and then allowing all of that to parlay over into the work I was doing for my NFL clients. And so it was a great experience. I couldn't do it right now with my wife and 2 kids, but could do it back then, 25, 26, 27 years old. And so it was great. And then I decided to take the leap of faith. I'm a believer. I wear my faith on my sleeve, literally, with the sweatshirt I have on today. And I took the leap of faith, and it was the best decision I've ever made. And not so much for the triumphs, but for the trials, some of the adversity that you inevitably face in this cutthroat business, understanding that, it reveals who you are. It's kind of like, the character is revealed through adversity, through the trials, faith is strengthened, humility is gained. And so I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Very cool. Nashville's kind of known as Music City, but we've got a lot of the sports industry here as well. We have a lot of agents, a lot of trainers, a lot of scouts. I guess because it's so convenient for travel. What brought you to Nashville?
Oddly enough, COVID brought us to Nashville.
Yeah, hey.
COVID brought us to Nashville. I was in New York City at the time. It's a crazy story about how we got here. Kind of
Do tell.
The 4-month period between March 2020 Van to July 2020. So during that period of time, to back up a little bit, I had just come back from the combine. Nobody knew what was happening. COVID was kind of coronaviruses in the background. And I remember I went to a cocktail party at the combine, and a good friend of mine showed up. He was sick as a dog. And he was just like, I don't know what I got, but he thought he had the flu.
Yeah.
And so got back from the combine and I was working with a former client, former NFL player, Notre Dame player, who, unfortunately, career ended due to medical malpractice. And so we actually went through a 5-year process where we filed mostly for closure and peace for him in his career. We filed a medical mal lawsuit against the former team physician for this team. And we went to trial the week of March 9th, 2020. And it was down south. And I'll never forget, that was the week, if you recall, where the NBA suspended its season.
Right.
We had the international travel ban. COVID went crazy. And so I was away from my family. We lived in Brooklyn at the time. We were in Dumbo. And my daughter, Vivian, adorable daughter, Vivian, she was only 5 months old. My son, Lucas, was just turned 3 a few months before. And so 2 little ones with my wife, everything's being turned upside down. And I remember after the trial concluded Friday, we rested our case. I decided, and I had planned on flying back home and then heading back on Sunday night for the remainder of the trial. But when I flew home that Friday night, I was thinking, should I leave my suits? Maybe I just leave them here at the hotel because I'm coming back on Sunday nights. But I said, you know what? Let me pack everything up. So I packed everything up, flew back home, got to LaGuardia. It was a ghost town that night. It was like 9:30 at night.
Wow.
Nobody was there.
That had to be weird.
It was weird, and like, funny aside, I actually snuck into the Delta Sky Club on my way back.
Oh, yeah.
And I was the one they passed. I don't know if it's the Eugene Lee rule, but apparently now for Delta Sky Clubs, you can only eat at your departing airport. You can't eat at the arrival airport.
Really?
Because I used to take advantage of that. So maybe that was the last time it was in effect. But had a little bite to eat, went home, put my son to bed. And the next day, the state Supreme Court, they suspended all non-essential trials. And so we were in limbo. And so then for the next 3 weeks, it was crazy because nobody knew what was going on. We lived in a high-rise condo in Dumbo, Brooklyn. And it was just, everyone was getting cabin fever. We couldn't go anywhere.
They were strict up there.
Oh, yeah, real strict.
It wasn't like here.
It wasn't like Tennessee. You would never know what was going on. Yeah, you never knew, what was happening.
We were living our best lives.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We experienced some of that when we moved out here. And so, yeah, but New York, they didn't take it lightly. And, we couldn't go anywhere, common areas of our building, elevators. And so my wife was, with 2 little ones, she was feeding at the time, both in diapers.
Wow.
We decided, I did some searching on Airbnb and I found a cabin. It was I call it a cabin, but, it had Wi-Fi, had a flat screen TV with a USB port.
Right.
It was all we needed for the Apple TV for the kids. So it was up in Tamworth, New Hampshire, up in the White Mountains. So we decided to do it, so we signed a 2 month lease, April and May of 2020. We drove the family up, and the next 2 months, it was awesome. It was just the 4 of us. Kept it locked down, no visitors, nobody from the outside. We were completely off the grid. It had the house had Wi-Fi, so I had enough to do my work, and then we had the TV for the kids, so everybody was happy. But it was a really special time because we bonded as this little family together. And I'll never forget my highlight of each week was driving 20 minutes. It was to Gorham. Maybe it was Gorham, New Hampshire. I forget the name of the town, but they had a Walmart in this town. And I'd stay up to midnight the night before or that morning, and I'd put in my grocery order. And then you would go to Walmart, you prepay, you'd show up at Walmart, open the trunk of your car, and they'd put the groceries in with no contact. Right. And so that was like the highlight of my day, was going to Walmart to get the groceries, come back home. And then this is another memory. We'd spend the next 2 hours wiping down the groceries.
Right.
Yeah. So it was a crazy time. And I'm getting to the answer of how we ended up here. So toward the end of May, our lease was coming to an end. We knew we needed to brave the storm and go back to Brooklyn. And mind you, during this time, it was the George Floyd tragedy happening. And so the day we drove back to Brooklyn in early June, where we lived in Brooklyn, they had the big memorial. So like all the traffic was backed up on the PQE. We had to drive through Williamsburg, a very Orthodox Jewish neighborhood where there was this huge measles outbreak. I turned off the AC. I was just taking precautions with the little kids. I turned off the AC with 95-degree weather. And so before we drove back and we braved the uncertainties of New York City, my wife and I were praying about it. We decided to make the leap of faith to Nashville. And we vacationed out here the year before, in summer of 2019. we love the city.
What made you think Nashville?
We stayed in Green Hills. So my wife is a singer-songwriter.
Okay.
She's a singer-songwriter. She performed, I think it was the second Broadway tour for Rent. She was in musical theater. She played Maureen in Rent.
Very cool.
Very talented. She teaches here vocal lessons, piano lessons, writes her own music. She played out in New York City multiple times, The Bitter End, Arlene's Grocery, Mercury Lounge. And so we vacationed out here, loved the city, didn't realize the food scene was so strong. We stayed in Green Hills, but just really loved the area. And so at that point in time, it was on our radar, definitely. We wanted more space for the kids. We wanted to raise them, with a yard and a bigger environment. And so COVID was the facilitator, was the catalyst. And we decided to take the leap of faith. And it just so happened when we were really thinking about it, my wife was on Zillow, and there was a family, an awesome family that owned a home in West Haven, in Franklin.
Sure.
And they just put up their home, just rented it out to sublet it on Zillow. The husband owns his own insurance brokerage company. And so they had a second home in Destin where they were moving to live during the COVID months.
Right.
And so we just hopped on it. It was a great transition. We moved out here, packed up our condo in a month from June 4th to July 11th. Movers came, masked up. I took my wife and the kids the night before to like 65 miles out of the city to like a little hotel. I think it was close to Lehigh, Pennsylvania, close to Allentown. And
there's a lot of good community down in West Haven.
Yeah. Oh, there really is. It really is. It was very concentrated, but it was a good transition from apartment living to having a house, because, you do have your own house, but it's pretty concentrated.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that's how we
used to hear the stories of New York and COVID with the people sitting in their windows singing and all that. Did you ever experience any of that?
I didn't experience that.
Did you see that?
I mean,
no. Stories about how they would all, in the high rises, they'd all open their windows at a certain hour.
Really?
When the nurses and people were getting off of work. It was in the early days, right? And they would all sit in their windows and sing.
Oh, that's awesome.
As the nurses and the essential folk were.
I read stories. Now that
pretty amazing.
Now that I recall, I think I do remember stories like that where they're kind of serenading and saluting.
Right. Because you hear all these stories about New Yorkers, but in my experience, when I was in music, my experience with New Yorkers was they were some of the greatest people I ever met in my life. I mean, it's a whole different breed.
It is.
And there's an intensity, but there's when you get through a certain level, there's a kindness and a generosity like you won't see anywhere. Yeah,
it's just New Yorkers are very real.
Yeah.
There's really not much pretense.
Right.
And like you said, there is, once you get through some of the rough texture and the rough layers, I mean, there's kindness, there's purity of heart.
That's right.
And so,
no matter where they're coming from, different faiths, different things.
Absolutely.
I loved it.
That's the beauty of New York.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, my first summer before I moved to the city to begin practicing law, I was a summer associate.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was on a subway car in the middle of July, or it was June. It was hot. It was 95 degrees outside. The platform was stifling. And I just remember being surrounded by 20 different ethnicities.
Yeah.
10 different religions.
That's right.
I'm hearing 10 different languages being spoken. We're all smashed in like sardines in this little subway car.
Oh, yeah.
But everybody was just being in the moment, celebrating, not even tolerating, just enjoying and celebrating the diversity and just being part of this big melting pot, which is the beautiful thing of New York City.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out of a show, getting on the subway, and all these ladies were on there in their full length mink coats and everything. I'm like, this is amazing. Blew my mind.
Oh yeah, you see it.
You see it all.
See it all. And there are times there were some professional baseball players. I think John Olerud did it when he played with the Mets. But he would take the 7 train. He'd take the subway out to the stadium.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't think anybody would take the subway because in the South, we don't have that here in Nashville and in Atlanta. We lived down there. I wasn't using MARTA. It was just like, you got a car, you drive, and
there you go.
Man, up there, everybody takes it.
Everybody does. Even Paul McCartney. Did you ever? I think he was on Letterman.
I love
one year. Paul McCartney. He told the story. I think it was on David Letterman back in the day. But he was taking a bus in New York City. He was riding the bus, like it was the M60, whatever.
Yeah.
And he sits down next to this older woman, and she kind of is trying not to look at him, but she's like can't help but notice, like,
Sure.
I think this is Paul McCartney. And so then she just asked him, excuse me, are you Paul McCartney? He's just like, well, yes, I am.
Right,
so
right.
like, she's like, oh my goodness.
It's New York,
Yeah,
baby.
it's New York. Yeah, Paul
That's
McCartney
right.
taking public transportation.
Heck yeah.
So,
I love it.
yeah, I do too.
I feel energized every time. It's the only place I ever want to take a walk.
Really?
Yeah. When I'm in Manhattan at night after the shows were over and it was done, everybody's in their hotels. I'd go for a walk in the middle of the night. That's the only time I ever want to take a walk.
We're actually taking the
it.
family out there for Christmas. You know, we're going in
There's
December.
nothing like it.
No, we're going to see the tree, and then we're going
Yes.
to take the kids. They've never been to a Broadway show.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to take them to see Aladdin,
Heck
and we're also
yeah.
going to take them to see the Radio City Christmas Spectacular.
Man,
So-
that city gets so packed at Christmas. It's
Oh, yeah.
insane.
It's great. It's great.
Well, there was one year I went up with my college roommate
Mhm.
and his wife and their daughter, and they wanted to see the tree at
Mhm.
Rockefeller Center.
Beautiful.
We went. It was a Saturday evening in December.
Sure.
I'd never done that because at the time I was a bachelor. You know, there's no
Oh,
reason
yeah.
for me to go up by myself to see the tree.
Right.
But I went along with them. It was insane. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like you see some of these European soccer stadiums, Premier League, after like a big victory, rushing that's what we felt like. I mean,
Yeah.
it felt very unsafe.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
Oh man.
It was crazy.
So my wife and I are getting ready to celebrate our 20th anniversary.
Yeah.
And our honeymoon was a week in Manhattan.
Wow.
And we stayed at the Plaza, and did the whole
Wow.
thing. And it was the week of Thanksgiving, so we got to be there for the unveiling of all the Christmas windows of all of Fifth Avenue, right?
That's amazing.
So we spent a day at Tiffany, and it was the day that U2 came through shooting their music video, and we got to we went to Broadway and we saw Rent.
Wow.
That was the show that we saw.
There you go.
And the guy from Nick Lachey's band, can't think of what the guy's name is all of a sudden, but anyway, he was performing in it, and we had our spot for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade was right there in front of Macy's,
Yeah.
so we got to be right there, and it was incredible. But man,
New York
good
is just, it's amazing. It's just like the beauty of New York is that, you have celebrities,
Right,
you have
right.
people, they're just interacting and just being part
Mhm.
of New York City.
But don't you see that
It's
here in Nashville as well? Like you literally you see people all the time. We bump into people all the time.
Yeah.
And people don't mess with them, and that's what I mean. I love everything about this place. People used to tease me about where I lived, back in the day, and
Yeah.
be like, "Yeah, you come visit, you'll see,"
Everybody
and-
loves Nashville.
And that's the thing is we just have so much, and people are kind.
Yeah.
The food is great.
Yeah.
You could still stretch out to get some space, depending on what you
Absolutely.
want. And man, it's a good
Yeah.
place to be.
Did the move impact your career at all? Were there any unanticipated benefits?
Oh yeah. Lots of benefits. It's been so conducive. I realized once we moved out here, because a lot of my fall is filled up with travel,
Mhm.
recruitment, client
Sure.
relations, client development, football games across the country. And so I didn't realize that, when you fly from New York, you're on the east side,
That's
Yeah.
right.
west, and got to go to the central part of the country. So being more centrally located was great, but then also being in the heart of SEC country.
That's right.
The other thing I didn't realize, somebody
That's
told me
right.
Tennessee is bordered by 8 states.
That's right.
It's the most in the country, which is crazy. And so, but I've seen it, I've experienced it. I've driven down to Oxford, Mississippi, Tuscaloosa, Alabama,
Mhm.
up to Kentucky. Goodness, we've driven over to the west side of North Carolina, Georgia, obviously, Atlanta. And so
Don't they
it's
say we're like
amazing.
eight driving hours from 80% of the population or something to that effect?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
unbelievable.
I mean, it's crazy.
Wow. Yeah, we haven't really experienced Nashville like that because we're in the daddy mommy phase.
Oh, yeah.
We're stuck down in suburbia a little bit, but I could definitely see that. There's a lot of kindness here. There's a lot of, everyday people.
That's right.
In where I lived in the East Village, it's a funny story. I tell people this. I lived on St. Mark's Place, and I lived right above a tattoo parlor. It was great. So it was back, I was single at the time, met my
Right.
wife while I was living there, but Helen Mirren and Taylor Hackford lived on the penthouse of our building.
No way.
It was the funniest. I ran into Helen a couple times. This is like in 2000,
Very cool.
the early 2000s before
Yeah.
she became Helen Mirren.
Right, right.
But she was cool.
Love her.
Oh yeah. Who was also a gentleman that I loved? 'Cause
Mm.
I grew up watching Happy Days. Just ran into Henry Winkler once, at
Yeah.
Rosemary's in the West Village after church, went to brunch, and sat there, and he's sitting right, like literally to my back to back. And I'm just saying to myself, yeah, I just want to say, hey, I was.
You
such a
didn't
big
say,
fan.
hey.
I should have. But such a gentleman. I just said,
That's
hey,
cool.
I just want to say, Mr. Winkler. I
Right.
said, I grew up watching Happy Days. And
Absolutely.
beyond his acting work, just the type of humanitarian type of man that
Mhm.
he is.
Yeah, he
that's
comes
the most
across
cool.
as a
Yeah,
gentleman.
just a lot of good people. I remember
Right.
walking up Second Avenue once late at night, going to the local bodega. And this is back in like maybe the late 90s, maybe 98, 99. All of a sudden, Christian Slater kind of looks at me, kind of with a Jack Nicholson type thing.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
cool. It was
cool.
funny, man. Good times.
So curious, what?
Oh, did you want to get in on this? We
Yeah, well,
we just been
you guys
chatting over
just,
here,
chatting about New York on this Nashville podcast.
Yeah, you got all these serious questions here, and I was excited to talk about
the real estate's probably hotter in Nashville now.
Well, it should be.
Probably.
I think so.
Yeah.
It's a good place.
It's a good place to be right
Yes,
now.
sir.
Is there any significance to Three Strand? I think we talked a little bit months ago, but Cord, when we were
that's right,
trying to come up with our name, initially it was Cord without the H. The marketing firm that was kind of helping with this. This idea.
That's
because of the
part
music.
Of the story.
The music, I see it.
Well, there's three partners,
Double
and so
entendre.
the idea was the biblical verse, three strands of a cord not easily broken.
Correct.
And then because we were so focused on sports and entertainment, we added the H, and there's three notes in a chord, so it fit really well for us. But I'm curious,
and our music row location and my background. So yeah,
but I'm curious if Three Strand has significance as a name, or
absolutely.
I would expect so.
You hit it right. You hit the nail on the head. I mean, we are the same.
Was that a softball question?
I mean, a little bit.
Yeah. It was kind of. It was a closed-ended question, which is
there. It is.
So yeah, it absolutely has the meaning you would think. Three strands of a cord are not easily broken. We like to say that I always say we secure all of the work that we do for our clients with the three strands of faith, integrity, and commitment, unwavering commitment. And just like a cord of three strands, when we combine those three elements and those three strands, we secure our work, it forms an unbreakable bond of excellence. And so it had meaning for me about understanding, and you can use that aphorism, you can use that analogy in multiple ways. I mean, for me, three strands, if I'm doing something, it's my Lord, whatever I'm doing, my task, and then myself. Combining that spiritual element, the divine element, and whatever I'm doing, it strengthens it, it empowers it, and it forms an unbreakable bond. And so, three strand is definitely, it has the meaning you would think. And some people get it, some people don't. Most of the people we talk to get it because there's that alignment.
They probably get it more in Nashville than they did in New York.
They probably do. Probably.
Yeah,
they probably. There's no doubt about that. They probably do. Yeah.
You talked about this lawsuit with the team doctor. There's been a lot of movies around that.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting from an outsider's perspective. You've got these players that don't necessarily want to be told that they're not able to play, and so the doctors are in a tough situation. What should they be doing? What should they be holding back? Do you see a lot of that happening where there's issues where the players maybe should have been told
or put at risk?
I would say this, everybody, and without judging a person's soul, everybody has an agenda, especially in this huge ecosystem of professional football, professional athletics for that matter. And understanding that and going in with your eyes wide open, part of your job as an agent and what we pride ourselves on is ensuring that we have independent, objective, second opinions to ensure accountability, to protect our clients, to ensure their long-term health and preserve their careers. And so, which means, you may have a team doctor or a head trainer they're good men, they're good guys, but at the end of the day, who pays their paychecks?
Right.
Where's their allegiance lie? And for us, it's about, hey, no offense, but we're entitled to a second opinion. We're going to take the second opinion. We're going to have, part of the benefits, it's a violent sport, and injuries are part of the game. And part of the benefits of my career coming up on 27 years is the fact that I've been able to build a phenomenal network of top orthopedic specialists across the country for every body part,
Right.
literally every body part, best of the best, talking industry best. And through that network, we're really able to support and protect our clients. And so, going back to your question, Steve, there probably is some of that where I don't know if it's intentional withholding, but maybe it's trying to get a player back on the field
Right.
sooner than later, even though maybe he's not at a full 100%, or, we just want to make sure that we're protecting our clients and holding people accountable. That's all.
Sure.
And that's an agent's role.
How would you say the industry has changed over the years with contract negotiations and just in general? I know some of the players are, asking to get paid in Bitcoin now, for example. Like what kinds of changes have you seen over the years?
Well, I think the biggest change it was 2 CBAs ago, but you have the slotted rookie scale. It was pushback. It was a reaction to some of the spiraling out of control rookie contracts. There was they call it the Jamarcus Russell effect, the former first pick overall by the Raiders, who I think it was something, I don't have the exact statistics, but he threw for less than 10 touchdowns in his entire career, made $35 million guaranteed on his first contract. And,
wow.
There were players like that where the owners were like, look, we can't pay these unproven players that much. We need to have some type of scale in place. So having the rookie pool in place where you're slotted now. So depending upon where you're drafted, exactly what your signing bonus is going to be, what the guaranteed money is going to be. That's one huge change. I think another change that came about, 2 CBAs ago is PPB, proven performance-based pay. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused with proven performance escalator. The acronyms are running up on me.
Oh yeah,
performance.
He's got lots of acronyms.
Oh yeah,
too,
the acronyms are all coming
estate.
up on me. Yeah, PPE, proven performance escalator, is an escalator for draft picks, second round through seventh round, who basically outplay the rookie deal. You sign a 4-year contract, and typically, if you at the end of your third year, you're eligible for restricted free agency, where you can sign an offer sheet. So there is some open market available, not as much as if you were an unrestricted free agent, but the proven performance escalator that I inadvertently mentioned covers an instance where you have a rookie, let's say he's a third round pick, but he ends up being a starter, plays the first 2-3 seasons, in on every play. Well, then instead of making what he's slotted to make in the 4th year, because he doesn't have the right to restricted free agency, he's locked in for that 4th year. As a player who plays a lot of snaps, you escalate his salary for that 4th year to almost triple what he would ultimately otherwise make. So that's the proven performance escalator. What I was referring to, what I had intended to refer to, was something called PBP, performance-based pay, where, again, similarly, you want to reward players who outplay their draft status.
Sure.
So essentially, every year you have guys that are undrafted free agents or late round picks that end up being valuable contributors on the team, some even starters, where at the end of the season, there's an algorithm that takes into account contributions, play time, and then takes also into account where a player is drafted, how he enters the league. And then it rewards players who come in late round picks, undrafted free agents, and really become valuable contributors. And it's a separate payment. It's paid out in the spring. So it really is beneficial to a player from a cash flow standpoint in the off season. But there are players, I had a client who was a 3rd round pick a couple years ago. He made over $200,000 on PBP. So I would say the slotted rookie pool or slotted rookie scale is one big development, and then performance-based pay being the other for the last couple decades.
Sounds like similar to real estate. Like it matters who you have negotiating for you. There's a lot involved with it.
There is, and you have to stay abreast on what's going on. Mm-hmm. But nobody's going to know everything off the top of their head.
Sure,
it's impossible. But being committed, being a professional in this business, and having your client's best interest at heart means that you're going to put in the time. If you're not familiar, you need to get brushed up on something, then you commit the time to really study and understand and know that terminology, know the rule in question inside out.
How does being an attorney help you be a better agent?
Oh, immensely. Having the legal background, especially a contractual background, it adds significant value to what I do. Being able to read through a contract more efficiently, understand what to look for, understanding the meaning of certain provisions. I mentioned force majeure to an associate of mine, who's not an attorney, he's more of a marketing guy. He had no idea what I was talking about. He thought I was speaking French. So I think it is a French term, but then explaining to him, okay, it's an act of God provision, which basically tolls the time for performance if, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a strike, whether it's a pandemic, really prevents performance from taking place. It'll toll the time for performance on both sides until that event passes. And then if the event in question extends for a certain amount of time, let's say 90 days or more, then it gives both parties the right to actually end the contract. And so, just having that background, being able to not only understand what I'm reading, perform my job at a high level, but being able to explain contractual language, terms in language that my clients can understand and appreciate. I think that's the key to having that legal background.
What do you tell young people who say they want to do what you do for a living? Do you tell them?
I make a joke.
They need to.
That's a great question, Van. So, I've I've had the opportunity to speak at some law schools and colleges nationwide. And my running joke now recently has been, okay, for those of you who want to become sports agents, I have one piece of advice for you. Don't do it.
Right. Every single person I've ever interviewed on their career has said that.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. The most successful people always say, don't do it.
I should qualify that. For me, I say that as a joke, but if I would say in all seriousness, don't do it if you're doing it for the wrong reasons.
Right.
If you're doing it with more of a individual centric approach where you're trying to make a name for yourself, enjoy the lifestyle, what you perceive to be the lifestyle based on some of these movies like Jerry Maguire, some of these shows like Ballers and Arliss. That's not the case. People don't, it's a glamorized Hollywood version. You don't understand getting kicked in the stomach, getting poached, having to deal with career-ending injuries.
That's right.
And the impact on your family, having to deal with just some of the effects of CTE, long-term effects of having a career played in the NFL. And there's a lot at stake. And so if you're doing it for a purely individual centric reason where you're doing it for yourself, your own glory, for you to get ahead, it's going to be the resistance, the adversity you face will make it very, very difficult for you to sustain.
So flip that. You're talking to a 22-year-old who's getting ready to graduate, undergrad, CPA, whatever they're doing, and you want to talk them into it. Tell them what's.
Oh, great question. Great question.
Flip it. Because everybody, even when I got engaged all those years ago, I went to all these people I respected and they all told me how they would have done it differently or they wouldn't have gotten married at all. And I was like, what is happening? Like, people always want to tell me why not. Tell me why I should be a sports agent.
You should be a sports agent.
Tell me.
You want to make an impact. You want to utilize your skill set, your network, your training to really help people that need it. And that's one of the reasons why we expanded beyond the NFL with players, executives, and coaches.
Okay.
We launched an NIL division to our agency back in April. And we've been blessed to have signed 36 clients.
Is that
April.
right?
Yeah. High quality players, even higher quality young men. And for me, the reason we entered that business, that side, is because we saw not only an opportunity, but we saw a need. We saw this isn't a new landscape with NIL, now with NCAA revenue sharing.
Okay.
And it's an underserved sector in terms of college players that either don't have representation or don't have qualified representation. So where can I make an impact? Where can I use my training, my background, my experience, my network, the team that I have been blessed to assemble? We have a former NFL general manager as part of our agency. We have a salary cap expert. We have a retired Navy SEAL chief. We have a biomechanical sports science doctor. We have an emotional intelligence expert. How can we best serve in what capacity? And so going back to your scenario about what do I tell a 22-year-old kid? If you have a servant's heart and you have the skill set, if you're an introvert and you don't do well in terms of dealing with adversity and being resilient, probably not the business for you.
Right.
But if you're a communicator, you're a self-starter, you want to make an impact, and you have the purity of heart to really do it for a reason beyond yourself.
Yeah.
And you want to live an open-handed life, both professionally and personally, and you love sports, by all means, take the plunge and be ready to work.
Yeah.
Be ready to work.
I think that's with any career. You better be ready to work if you want
Absolutely.
if you want to step out.
seems like a lot of these guys just get taken advantage of. They've got such a short career, overall. And I think a lot of them don't come from money, they,
Talking about the athlete.
the athletes. Yeah. And so, they get, and someone gets in their ear that doesn't have their best interest at heart. They just, they don't end up well at the end of it all. It's just so unfortunate.
You
Get a
see
lot of
out
fingers
there,
in the pie.
yeah, and you see, without disparaging other members of this industry, having been around for a while, you see what's out there in terms of agents and the quality of work. And you can't read into a person's heart or character or soul and figure out what their true intentions are. But you see some of the work product, and you see, circumstantially how they've handled certain situations for their clients, and you're just like, wow, But it emboldens you, it reinforces, it energizes you to continue to fight the good fight, to continue to make an impact, and to be the best version of yourself for your clients, and then for your future clients, and for the industry in general.
What is the typical background of an agent? Are a lot of them attorneys? Is it more CPAs? Like what's the norm?
I think you have a good number of agents who are attorneys who have that legal background for the reasons I had mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of agents have a business background, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in finance, having that business background. A lot of agents have an MBA, so they have that business background. I would say those are the two.
They've got degrees now for it too, right?
Oh yeah. There are. I know this because I've started teaching classes, at a couple schools. There are, I think, close to 800 universities and colleges in North America that offer a sports management major.
Incredible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So it's great.
How's it different than in the music business? Like in music, there's personal managers, and then there's business managers, and then there's agents. And the agents are booking agents, right? Talent agents. They're booking a day of your life, right? But the personal manager is signing off on the contracts, all that kind of thing. How is that different in sports?
So what's different in sports, every once in a while we'll run into a situation where, we're talking to a prospective client and he'll say, well, I have a manager.
Right.
And again, with all due respect to managers, in this side of the business, in what we do, as a full service agency, you wear all hats.
Okay.
So we take care of the career development, professional development with our staff. We take care of marketing in-house. We take care of, obviously, the contracts and negotiation, even legal services. We provide that service. I provide that service gratis for our clients, where any type of agreement, whether it's a lease agreement, whether they're looking to purchase something, a purchase agreement for a car, whatever, I'm able to really look that over for them. So we provide full service representation.
Is that typical?
It is typical, I would say, for most of the larger agents. I think actually for most agencies. Okay. You're going to see most agencies wearing all hats, unlike the music industry, unlike the entertainment industry.
Right.
Where you have a manager, you have an agent. I never really understood that on our side, because as a full service agency, we wear all the hats. So,
got it.
Well, talk a little bit about the documentary. How'd you get involved with that? How's that impacted your career?
Oh, that was a blessing. I mean, and first, I'm glad you brought that up. The documentary was directed by Morgan Spurlock, the late Morgan Spurlock, and rest in peace. Morg became a good friend after that documentary, and I always thanked him. I said, "Look, I'll never forget. I was in Chicago. I went to visit a client. It was December of 2010, and it was a freezing game. It was the Patriots against the Bears at Soldier Field. Probably one of the coldest games I've ever been to in my life. It was so cold. I remember the second half, I was standing by the concession stands under the heater. It was that cold, and it was like a blizzard game. If you go back into the annals, it was like, it was white, like snow coming down, freezing cold. But I flew back the next morning, Monday morning, and I got back to my office, and I had a voicemail, and it was from a producer, Matthew Galkin, who was Morg's business partner at the time with his production company, Warrior Poets, which I love that name. What a name for a production company, Warrior Poets. And so they called, left a voicemail, mentioned that they were hired by ESPN to produce this documentary on sports agents, and they wanted to have a conversation. And so
Now, did you have the conversation over a McDonald's supersized meal?
I was going to say, we need to say who this guy is.
I should have.
You can share who the guy is, why, if people aren't familiar with his name.
Yeah. No, Morg did. He was nominated for an Academy Award for Super Size Me, where
That's right.
And Matthew would always say, he has a really good way of putting himself in harm's way. And so I remember we had lunch. I'm completely getting off subject, but Morgan and I had lunch at Balthazar.
Oh, wow.
Such a New York
right,
thing, right? So we had lunch at Balthazar. It was a few years later, it was after the documentary. And he was shooting a show at the time on CNN. It was Inside Man. And he had to go, after lunch, he had an appointment with an orthopedic specialist for his shoulder. I said, what happened? He's like, well, one of these episodes, I went down to Ole Miss, SEC football team. I put on the pads, and the coach asked me, he's like, what did you play in high school? He's like, well, I played offensive line. I was like, all right, we'll put you on the offensive line.
Okay.
He goes, I'm 175, 180 pounds
right.
now. And they put him on the offensive line. I think he separated his shoulder or something. So,
they didn't go soft on him, did they?
No. Yeah. He separated his shoulder, and so but back to the origin of how it came to be. I had a great interview with Matthew. Set it up the next day. Came to the office. He told me, he was very transparent. He said, I'm interviewing, speaking with all kinds of agents, the big ones, everybody. We want to include in this project. And so I just sat with him for an hour and I just spoke from the heart about my vision, about my mission, kind of, my background, what I aspired to be, where I aspired to go. And I'll never forget, I got home that night and I talked to my wife. I said, this is crazy, but I think I just have a feeling that this might happen.
That's good.
And literally the end of the next day, I got a phone call from Matthew. He's like, we want to shoot live your next recruit meeting. It was with Brandon Hogan, cornerback from West Virginia, down in Washington, D.C., outside of D.C. in a small town, relatively small, called Manassas, Virginia.
Sure. And
so I flew down there. I'll never forget. We met at in a parking lot about 20 miles from DCA, Reagan International Airport, and they mic'd me up. They put a camera in my car to shoot me while I was driving. Right. We were off and running. And so the funny part, this is hilarious, actually. First day of shooting this documentary, and people don't know this who watch it. So the first day, you'll see the opening scene where I have the meeting set up with Brandon. It's with his high school football coach and his guardian at the time.
Cool.
And I remember this is before I was using, Google Maps on my phone to navigate as my GPS. And so I printed off my MapQuest back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
MapQuest.
The good old days.
My MapQuest instructions.
Get out your atlas and your MapQuest.
Absolutely. So before I left, I printed off the instructions because his high school coach said, oh, yeah, we're at Osborne High School. Osborne High School. I'm like, okay, cool. So I Google, first thing shows up, Osborne Park High School. It's like, done. Print off the directions. So then I get mic'd up. We drive over to the high school. The meeting's supposed to take place in the football office, and they're shooting me live, walk from my car to the front door, and I feel majestic. I feel awesome. I'm being taped for this ESPN documentary. It's 30 for 30. It's amazing. I felt so confident. And the first door I went to, boom, locked. Second door,
classic.
Locked. Third door, locked. And I literally went down. There were like 7, 8 doors, and I went down. Each one was locked, and I'm just like, and this is, I can feel the heat of the camera on my back. I'm thinking, this is awful. I can't believe this is happening. But I'm like, play it cool. I'm inner voice, play it cool, play it cool. And so I put on a good face and say, hey, you know what? These high schools, the football office is in the back. That's probably where they wanted to come in. It's after hours. We got to go to the back. Oh, okay, no big deal. So they're still shooting me. I can feel the cameras. And we walk to the back. Check the door. First one, boom, locked. Second one, boom, locked. Third one, locked. Okay, now I'm starting to sweat a little bit.
Right.
So I called the high school coach. Hey, Steve. I was like, I'm here. He's like, okay, I'll be right down. So I was like, oh yeah, he's coming down to let us in. They stopped filming, thankfully, at this point. And then I'm waiting. A few minutes go by. Don't see him. All of a sudden, I get a phone call from the coach. He's like, hey, I'm here. I don't see you. I was like, I'm here. I don't see you. He's like, wait a second. Are you at Osborne Park High School? I said, yeah. He's like, no, we're Osborne High School. We're not Osborne Park High School. We're half a mile down the road. I was like, what are the odds that
really?
this small town in Virginia has 2 Osbornes within half a mile?
Right.
I was like, oh my gosh. And so we went over. Everything went swimmingly at the next location. And the running joke, actually on the drive over, Matthew, they're like doing like the fake Morgan Spurlock voiceover. Meet Eugene Lee. and like showing me getting locked out of the
love
high
it.
school
I
and playing
love
like the
it.
clown music. Doo-doo, doo-doo, doo-doo.
Oh, that's so good.
Oh yeah, it was so bad. I was like, please. I was like, no matter what happens, don't play that. Don't include that in the documentary.
Gave
like
you
me
true
getting locked out.
humility as you start.
Oh, me getting locked out of the high school with Morgan doing the voiceover. Meet Eugene Lee.
Meet Eugene.
So nobody knows about that, but yeah, it was an unforgettable moment. Great experience. The whole process with the crew. That was the year of the lockout. So there's
Maybe
another
that'll
story.
show up on YouTube someday. Little excerpts,
Oh, so this is talk about test of faith.
Yeah.
So it showed up on. So that was the year of the lockout, which meant after the draft, we had no contact with teams. Once the draft is over, you typically have free agents that would sign, negotiate deals. None of that. Everything went silent until the lockout ended. And so the draft took place in late April. We were very fortunate. It was in the documentary. We had a client drafted, like a under the radar JUCO kid at South Florida, got drafted by the New York Giants. And like the cameras went in our draft room. We all went nuts. They had cameras at his house. Everyone went nuts. It was awesome. Beautiful moment. And then I'll never forget, about a week later, and I was keeping in contact with him weekly, or a couple times a week. Hey, how is everything going? A week later, I get a termination notice. He fires me. This client that gets drafted.
Right.
It was the craziest thing. And so, and I go, well, I finally get a hold of him. I said, what happened? I said, well, you didn't ask me if I needed anything. And like, I thought you didn't care. I was like, we've spoken multiple times. I was like, if you need something, bring it up.
Right,
I ask you, and you tell me everything's good. I was like, I can't read your mind. So then I fly down to see him. He was in Tampa. I flew down, we shook hands and said everything was good, and somebody was getting in his ear.
Of course.
Basically at that time with the lockup, basically saying your agent, you don't even need to ask. Your agent should be wiring you thousands of dollars, money. And I'm like, you live at home with your mom.
Right.
Your truck is paid for. What expenses do you have? You know that as what you're going to get. It's ultimately not an if, but when. And so essentially at the end of that process, came back to New York. Everything was ready to go. And then I remember I kept sending SRAs for him to sign, re-sign, never signed. And then at the end of the day, I got an email like about 2 weeks later from a new agent saying, oh, he signed with me.
It's tough.
And I was just, you got to be kidding me. So I went back to the team and said, look, onward and upward.
Right.
In the back of my mind, I'm thinking about the documentary. I'm thinking, well, the good news is the general public, all they'll see is the euphoria from him getting drafted, and that's the climax, and that's done. I was like, it's unfortunate, but in terms of the exposure, the branding, who's really going to know?
That's right.
No big deal.
The reality is tough, though.
The reality, though, here's the reality. Because of the lockout, at the end of July, right when the lockout was ending, I get a phone call from Matthew, the producer, with Morgan. Hey, the lockout's ending. We want to film you negotiating his contract with the Giants. So, talk about test of faith. Right. And so I said, you know what? I said, this is what happened. I told him what happened. He goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe that really happens. What a crazy business. He's like, we need to interview you. Yeah. Find out exactly what happened and put it out there. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh. I was like, it's going from bad to worse real quick. Yeah. But again, I committed to it. I said, okay, so we set up a time to meet at my office. Right. And I wrote about this in my book. I said I got home that night, and over the weekend, I just kept practicing in front of the mirror. The key for me was not coming across as a victim, but to come across from a position of strength, even in this instance, under this scenario. And I kept practicing my words, my inflection, and I had so much unrest, so much anxiety. And it really wasn't until I understood that this whole opportunity wasn't my own doing. It was a blessing. It was a blessing from God.
That's good.
It really wasn't. And so just as God gave me this opportunity, he knows what he's doing. He knows what's going to happen next. He knows how best to use this.
That's good.
So I'm just going to surrender it. And at that moment, I remember I received peace. And the interview went as well as it could have gone. Went really well. The documentary came out. It aired on ESPN in October. And this is the beauty. The beautiful part is because of that whole snafu, I really came across as the protagonist. And some of the principles that came across about resilience, work ethic, integrity, faith, standing firm in the face of adversity, it inspired so many people. I received emails I'm literally across the globe.
Wow.
From the UK, from Asia, from Europe, from Africa. I had someone email me from Florida saying, my son now is so motivated in high school. He wants to go to college, get his accounting degree, become a sports agent. He'll be the first in our family to graduate from college. He's inspired. Keep
Awesome.
fighting the good fight. And it was just unbelievable
Mm-hmm.
how the Lord was able to use that for his good.
Right.
And kind of taking a step back and looking back with hindsight. And it was just,
even though it was a gut punch.
it was a gut punch, absolute gut punch. But you can only see so far.
That's right.
A finite way down the road, but that eternal perspective. I mean, looking back, it was unbelievable how it was used for good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the funny part is that player and I, he reached out, called me, at the end of his career. He called me, and literally he should have been signed as a free agent. He was a starting linebacker for multiple years. First through his rookie contract, should have been signed as a free agent, unrestricted free agent. And I don't know he never got signed.
My goodness.
Never got signed, which is unheard of for a starting player in the NFL, not to even have one team sign you as a free agent. And so after that, and I never wished anything bad for him, but after that, he called me to apologize.
Wow.
And he said, you're the first man to really show me, because he didn't have the best childhood growing up. He said, you're the first man to ever show me what it meant to be a professional, how to handle yourself like a professional. He's like, I'm really sorry. I said, hey, I said, much love, brother. Like, things happen for.
It's cool that you got some closure there too.
Oh yeah, I had closure, and I think he needed the closure more so than me.
That's good.
But it was a beautiful moment, and it's just another living testimony, kind of, especially in this space. And so, I'm sorry, Steve, I took that answer. I went down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
But,
we like it. We like it.
You've had some similar
oh my
in the
gosh.
music industry.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, I had a band after 10 years of managing them fire me backstage after a show, and the lead singer was wearing my shoes. Right? I'm like, you're letting me go, and you're wearing my shoes. I mean, it's
first thing comes to my mind. I think of School of Rock.
Yeah.
Dewey.
Yeah.
Getting fired from the band. Same thing. Yes, sir.
It's one of those things. It's reality, but
he's wearing your shoes.
Yeah.
Oh
he got on the plane and forgot his shoes that he always wore on stage. I gave him my shoes to do the show, and
you're a good man, man.
Somebody got in his ear.
You're a good man.
I don't know.
Good man.
They were a good band. They still are. Yeah. Yeah. It's part of life, right?
You wouldn't be here, right?
That's it. That's exactly right. I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
That's right.
So you've gotten into media production now. I would imagine digital social media is a big deal for athletes. I mean, entertainment industry, obviously, they're trying to build a fan base, but does it the same thing apply for athletes? Do they need that fan base for endorsement deals, that kind of thing? Like what is the
interesting?
What does it look like for an athlete?
At you with the question, cross-pollinated question.
Very versed in the space. No, you hit the nail on the head, Steve. When we're pitching our marketing division, they're pitching a brand for a potential partnership. I mean, the first place that the brand goes is to the player's social media accounts, Instagram and then Twitter, now known as X. They go there to see the number of followers, the reach. That's the first place they look. And so
it's amazing.
It's invaluable.
Even in sports.
Yeah. Fundamental for
incredible
you to work with your players and your clients to help them build their follower base organically, to find ways and vehicles and pointers where they can really expand and grow that follower base, because there is correlation between the follower base and the interest with brands in terms of partnerships, and also being able to leverage those partnerships for maximum value. Mm-hmm. And for us on the content side, it's a living tribute to Morgan, and his role in kind of inspiring me. But that time in front of the camera on ESPN, it revealed for me not only an affinity for what goes on behind the scenes, but a vehicle and aptitude for telling a story, a lot of which are in the sports, almost all of which are in the sports space. And so, we've produced and we're developing in pre-production documentaries, docuseries. I wrote a book after the documentary called My Brother's Keeper, which encapsulates my mindset about being in this business. And so, one of the projects that we've been talking about for years, I have a good friend of mine, collaborator. He's an actor. His name is Tim Kang. Tim was most recently on the reboot of Magnum P.I. And prior to that, he was on The Mentalist as Cho. So Tim and we've been in talks for years about taking my book and creating a scripted show about an Asian American sports agent fighting the good fight. And so if anybody out there watches this and listens to this,
Yeah.
get in touch with Steve and Van. Get in touch with
Absolutely.
me.
That's right.
But it's been awesome. Again, it comes down to asking the Lord to use your talents, and that's the humility aspect, is understanding that your will may not align with the Lord's, but that's where faith comes in, surrender comes in. Yeah.
So what's the future for 3 Strand? Where do you want to take things? What's the ultimate vision?
Oh goodness, we are an agency. We're just impacting as many lives with power and purpose as possible. So I see us continuing to expand and have a significant footprint in the NIL space with college football players, organically as a byproduct, representing more and more NFL players. We're going to have a growing and thriving executives and coaching division, both in the NFL and NCAA. Our educational verticals. I am in the process. I have 3 high school immersive sports agent summer camps ready to go for next summer. The first is at the University of Maine in June. The second is going to be at IMG Academy in Bradenton, Florida, excuse me. And then the third is at Samford University. That is more of a sports business summer camp because they have a tremendous analytics program down there in Birmingham. And so that's another vertical for us that we're really looking to expand on, the educational side, about people that want to learn about the NFL, that want to learn transferable skills with a focus on underrepresented sectors, both minorities, and females. I am partnering, actually, another little sub vertical there. I'm partnering with Fritz Pollard Alliance. Executive Director Rod Graves is a good friend of mine. They are a not-for-profit committed to the advancement of diverse sectors in the NFL, both in the front office and on sidelines. And so we're collaborating to take my NFL content, the class content about the NFL, the business of the NFL, and take it to the masses on an online educational platform. And so that's a very exciting element for me. And then the creative side, we're working on a couple projects right now. We have received the official authorization from John Carroll University to produce and develop a documentary that I wrote called NFLU. And essentially, you probably are thinking, what's John Carroll University? John Carroll University is a Division III college in northeastern Ohio that per capita has more NFL GMs, head coaches than any of the other big blue bloods, like the Ohio States, the Michigans, the Notre Dames. It's the craziest thing, the phenomenon, the pipeline to the pros. And so the documentary is going to explore this phenomenon, like, how did this come to be? And so we're in the process of getting that up and running next summer. So yeah, I think those 3 verticals, and again, it may change. This is kind of my best guess as to the Lord's alignment for my life and my professional life, but that's where we are right now. So I'm excited, and we're also looking to engage and become just a contributing, loving member of this awesome Nashville community. Continue to ingrain ourselves and root ourselves in the people and the place.
One of the key guys behind the curtain. A mover and a shaker. Becoming a tastemaker.
I love it.
So if someone wants to get a hold of you, athlete, an executive, a coach, or if someone's interested in the other verticals that you're in, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Shoot me an email. It's my first name, Eugene, Eugene, at 3 Strand Sports, and it's the number 3, strandsports.com.
Awesome.
Very good.
Well, Eugene, it has been an absolute pleasure.
Absolutely.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And we will see you guys next time. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Behind the Curtain, Nashville's Movers, Shakers,
And Tastemakers.
We hope you've been inspired by the stories of passion, perseverance, and innovation right here in Nashville.
A big thank you to our guests for sharing their journeys, and to you, our listeners, for joining us. And of course, our gratitude to Accord Real Estate for making this conversation possible.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.
Thank us.
Yes, you did.
Oh, I guess I did. Well, thank us. Okay.
Like I was saying.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget to follow or subscribe on your favorite platform to catch every episode, and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more fascinating guests lined up, ready to share their insights and inspirations.
And we love hearing from you. So reach out to us with your thoughts, questions, or suggestions for who you'd like to hear from next.
Until next time, keep chasing your dreams and making your mark in Nashville.
Oh, my goodness.
Remember,
Am I talking to Casey
it's
Kasem?
the people behind the scenes that make the city shine.
I love it. Take care. See you behind the curtain.